Welcome back, everyone, to the Wargiven Racing Podcast here. This is episode number 20, the Phoenix Racing Recap. This is Racing Recap number 4 in this format, number 5 number 5 or 6 if you count the 24 Hours of Daytona slash Formula E opening round content. Today we are talking Phoenix and the two races that happened there this weekend. Taking a brief look just back at the track information. The Oval opened in 1964, had its first Cup race in 1988. Had 5 races across the top series, with 2 of them being this weekend. It's the 52nd Cup race and the 41st Xfinity race. And then it is the site of the championship race as well. Also, this is the 3rd configuration of this track, which I'm not sure I mentioned in the preview for this weekend. But this is the 3rd iteration of the Phoenix track that has been used since 2019. Now, moving on to the Xfinity race, the United Rentals 200. Noah Gragson gets his first win of the year. The first win of the year for Junior Motorsports, despite having cars in the top 5 every single week, mainly because of Gragson. Gragson has finished 3rd, 2nd, and 1st to start the season with quite an impressive bang compared to last year's start of the season, which was quite horrible, and he didn't pick up the pace until later on, before his first win in September at Darlington. But since then, Noah Gragson has been extremely quick at all tracks. Brandon Jones, a nice bounce back race for him. He finished 2nd, led a few laps late on in the race, trying a little bit of a different strategy. Josh Berry, again, continuing his consistent performance when he sees these tracks for the 2nd and the 3rd time in his Junior Motorsports Chevy. Trevor Bayne in his 2nd race of the year, hopping back in, was on pole, finished 4th. I believe he had, I want to say, a speeding penalty earlier on in the race that cost him just track position, and he fought his way back up, but only could get to 4th. John Hunter Nemechek and the Sam Hunt Racing Machine, which is a Toyota, by the way, led their first laps as an organization. He led, I believe, the start of the 3rd stage as he got out of the pits faster than Gragson and Jones and Berry and so on and so forth. Ty Gibbs, another strong week after winning last week, finished 6th, involved in another incident, but obviously nothing too major. Then we've got the Kaulig trio, 7th, 8th, and 9th, another solid day, but that's really all Kaulig's been this year so far, minus the Daytona race where Daniel Hemrick won both of the stages. They have just been solid. And then Justin Allgaier rounding out that top 10. He had the speed, and this is actually quite impressive. He finished 10th despite having a pass-through penalty for running over, I believe it was an air hose line or one of his air gun hose lines during green flag pit stops in stage 3. So the fact that not only did he have that penalty, but then he finished on the lead lap, which when we get to the race statistics is insanely impressive, showed that he probably could have won this race if it wasn't for that unfortunate penalty. But then again, that's racing. You can't make those mistakes and expect to be rewarded. Moving on to the notable incidents from this race, Riley Herbst on lap 22 lost his brake pedal and hit the wall pretty hard, got out of the car tenderly, looked a bit shaken up. When he gave his interview with Jamie Little after he got out of the infield care center, he mainly said that, he was just disappointed and, it happens, brake failure. It does suck. Herbst had been running, I believe, top 5, top 6 in points, which, I'm a critic of Herbst. He's a NASCAR pay driver with Monster Energy. He's been in Joe Gibbs. Now he's at Stewart Haas. He hasn't won a race. It's been 3.5 years. But then again, this season he started off pretty consistent. So, this was unfortunate. Nothing of his doing. Stage 1 ends with Trevor Bayne winning. Trevor Bayne has won Stage 1 in both of his starts this year and has showed the speed. Like I mentioned, he started on pole. Then in Stage 2, Ty Gibbs got turned by Berry out of Turn 1. this wasn't really either driver's fault. Gibbs got loose off the restart, which at Phoenix, if you haven't watched the race or you're unfamiliar with Phoenix, it is a tri-oval, a 1 mile tri-oval, and the start finish line is on the dog leg, or what is called the dog leg, with a large apron underneath the banked front stretch. So drivers will cut that dog leg in order to get lower into turn one and then slide up in front of their opponents using, the dirty air to push them up the track as well. He tried that, and he just got loose coming out of turn one, and Barry had nowhere to go and just spun him. No major damage, as you saw. He finished sixth. Excuse me. So nothing too bad there. And then Gregson, dominated most of stage two, ended up winning it. So will he finally get the win? And the answer is, of course, yes, as I mentioned earlier. Gregson, because he didn't win both stages, which this year so far, if you're a driver and you've won both stages of the race, you have not won the race. So it'll be interesting to see when that streak breaks. But Gregson, dominated this first run of stage 3, which went from lap 90 to 200. As you can see here, lap 196 to 185 was when the green flag pit stops really happened. Mainly between 165 and 175 is when the pit stops happen. However, Brandon Jones, because he pitted earlier to go on to his last set of fresh tires before Gregson, actually took the lead with the undercut. And, in modern day NASCAR, that is so rare because of the stages. You don't really see drivers trying different strategies, trying to go more aggressive. And it was refreshing. It was refreshing to see. And, he nearly, at Phoenix, dirty air, track positions king, he nearly did it. But Gregson just had too much of a good car, ended up with about, I believe it was, the last 15 laps. He just got too close and he went right around the bottom. And, but Brandon Jones still finished second. I mean, again, you got to try it. It worked. I mean, Brandon Jones was running like 5th or 6th before the pit stop cycle. So, why not gamble it? Like I said, finish. Gregson dominated. He won. He had the most laps, fastest car, won a stage. And then his burnout was absolutely epic. Completely, blew out all the tires in his car. Is pretty great. Nothing notable about the statistics here, except for the fact that I believe this is the lowest caution and the lowest cars on the lead lap, not only for the Xfinity Series, but for any NASCAR series. Obviously, the least amount of cautions this race can have is 2 because of the stages, but to only have 4 and only 33 laps, of which I didn't keep track because I only keep track of how many laps are run under caution for the Cup Series. I would say probably about 20 of these laps were run under stage caution. So about 20% or 10% of this race was stage caution, and the other 6.5 was, actual cautions. There were only 6 leaders, but the 16 lead changes is actually kind of good, better than I thought. And then, like I mentioned, 10 cars finished on the lead lap due to that very long green flag run in stage 3. There were only 3 DNFs. Riley Herbst when he hit the wall, and then Parker Resloff in his Xfinity debut had a mechanical issue, as well as Josh Williams. And then moving on to the storylines, Gregson, domination. He finally got that win after finishing 3rd, 2nd, 1st. Deserved the win. Again, great start to the season, which you'll see here in the points. And then next, where is Colleague? Colleague Racing last year with AJ Allmendinger was fighting top 5 every race. Justin Haley was in the top 10 every race and fighting for top 5s every race. Even Jeb Burton flirted with the top 10 a lot. And, Landon Castle's been doing better than Jeb Burton. But AJ Allmendinger's been really nowhere. He has 2 poles, and Daniel Hemrick has a pole, but they really haven't shown the speed. And so that's, a little unfortunate. And then, as I mentioned with the top 10 rundown, John Hunter Nemechek gave Sam Hunt Racing its first lap sled. So nice to see that a team that's gradually expanded into the series has gotten, some rewards for that effort. And John Hunter Nemechek, fantastic driver. Now the next step for them, in my opinion, is next year they have to have a full-time driver. The part-time driver stuff works, but, the real, sponsorship money is when you make the playoffs. And to make the playoffs, you have to have a full-time driver. But anywho, moving on to the point standings, you got your 3 drivers locked in the playoffs. You've got your top 20 here. The cutoff is now below Brandon Brown for the playoffs because Trevor Bayne is currently in the top 12. And since he has only run 2 races, he is ineligible for the playoffs, but still very impressive that he's in 12th place, which would qualify him for a playoff spot if he ran. Another note, Gragson is up 49 points after 4 races for the regular season championship. Absolutely outstanding work by him. And then he's obviously the leader in the locked in the playoffs, which is how many playoff points you have. He's got 8 with the 1 win in the 3 stages. Other notables in the top 20, JJ Yeley, running for MBM Motorsports, who, if you know them, typically not very fast, but he stayed consistent. He stayed out of trouble, and that's being rewarded with a 19th place. And he's full-time this season, which is wonderful to see, even if it is a car that typically runs in the mid-20s. It's wonderful to see that another driver's gotten that opportunity to run full-time. But anywho, moving on to the Roof Mortgage 500K, the NASCAR Cup Series race this week. Your top 10, Chase Briscoe for Stewart Haas Racing in the Ford camp, won his first Cup race and actually became the 200th winner in the NASCAR Cup Series. Held off, late restart challenges, had a very quick car. I'd probably put him as the second fastest car on the day, but his pit crew got him out front. He stayed out front. He didn't make mistakes, and he deserved to win this race. After a horrible rookie season, which in my mind was more because Stewart Haas was tanking, much like Haas F1, Gene Haas's other team, did last year for the new cars. He's really showed that he's that driver that in 2020 won 9 Xfinity races. So, again, great job from Chase Briscoe. Runner-up Ross Chastain, again, the speed, 3rd place last week, 2nd place this week. He's going to get a win soon. It's like Noah Gragson in the Xfinity Series. You can feel it. Trackhouse has really stepped up their game this year, as has Richard Childress with Tyler Reddick. Reddick, again, finishing where he deserves to finish after having the unfortunate crashes in both Daytona and Auto Club. Poor Ryan Blaney. I mean, the man had the fastest car at the 500, finishes 2nd. He gets wrecked out in Auto Club due to no fault of his own. He gets wrecked out in Las Vegas due to no fault of his own. He has the fastest car in Phoenix, and his pit crew screws it up for him, and he finishes 4th. So, again, he's going to win. He's going to make the playoffs. It's just, if you're Ryan Blaney, you're kind of pissed, and I don't blame him. Kurt Busch, this is really a story of, the late restarts helped. He pit, I believe, on the last restart. And if not the last restart, he came with the group on the second to final restart. He was running outside the top 10 all day, but, still on the lead lap and everything. And he was able to use that to get into 5th on those final restarts. So good job for him taking advantage of the late race chaos. Kevin Harvick, he had probably the 4th fastest car. Yeah, he finished 6th. He was in 3rd place for most of the final stage, and then stupid cautions came out. I'm sorry, I'm just a bitter Kevin Harvick fan. He hasn't won in over a year and a half. So, it's getting there. Again, didn't tear up the equipment, just like Kyle Busch next, who, despite complaining how horrible his car was, got a top 10. Again, mainly because he pit on the last restart, got some fresh tires. Joey Logano just ran top 10, just an average day for him. Daniel Suarez, again, Trackhouse, I believe this is their first double top 10, which, isn't surprising considering they're only a 1-car team last year. But, great job from Suarez, bouncing back after getting wrecked out last week due to, Briscoe getting loose and just nowhere to go for Suarez. And then Chris Buescher with his first top 10 of the year in the Roush Fenway car. He showed, granted, he was running like 15th, 16th for most of the race, got those fresh tires, got in 10th. But, he ran better than his boss and fellow teammate and his teammate Brad Keselowski, who is nowhere to be found this weekend. So, good job for Buescher. Moving on to the notable incidents. Oh, back to the wheel problems. Corey LaJoie. Well, the facts. The wheel came off. The wheel was able to roll, meaning it was not destroyed. The wheel hub was cracked, shattered, and, was dragging on the ground when the wheel decided to fall off. This is the first time since Daytona we've seen this happen, I believe. I don't think it happened at Auto Club. Um, Auto Club was, them getting stuck after getting a flat. So, yeah, again, this is a 50-50. Was it the wheel gun not securing the lug nut? Was it, a tire problem? I also heard that on the radio that it could have been a brake problem where the team accidentally put the brake pad too close to the tire, and it literally shook off the wheels, shook off something. Who knows? But, NASCAR's just got to look into this. I mean, if it's one car a week, it sucks, but it's a new car. This is gonna happen. But again, you hate to see it for any driver, but especially for Corey LaJoie, who's just had kind of an start to the season. William Byron won stage 1. I know he didn't finish in the top 10, but he'd been in the top 10 for most of the race. He had good pace, and won a stage, which is good. And then lap 119, Christopher Bell didn't get tagged. I think he probably had a front or a rear right going down, and it just spun him out, and he limped back to the pits, lost 2 laps. And then, every single time he looked to be getting, hey, I might be on a restart, only 1 lap down, whether it be at the end of the stage or some of the later cautions, he'd get lapped right before it because he had to stay out to, be 1 lap down on the wave around. And so, he just could never get back on the lead lap despite having pace. He was running top. He qualified 4th. He was running up front for a lot of the first, 119 laps. So, just unfortunate for him again that this happened. And then end of stage 2, Ryan Blaney, the fastest car. Chase Elliott, probably the 5th fastest car, but really good in the middle half of this race, or middle portion of this race. Side by side across the line for stage 2. Blaney wins that stage, gets that playoff point. And then that was pretty much everything for Elliott. As you can see here, he spun later on, but we'll get to that. Lap 221, Truex got loose coming out of turn 2, slapped the wall hard. Fortunately, he was okay, but that ended his day. Really just a disappointing day for him. After winning last year's spring race, I didn't predict him, thankfully, but I predicted his teammate Denny Hamlin. That wasn't much of a better pick either. And then lap 286, Eric Jones, who had been running top 10 all day, hit the wall. I mean, just crashed, spun. I mean, fortunately, didn't do too much damage. Like, dude, you gotta. I mean, I understand. This portion, tires were getting worn. It was a longer run, probably the longest run of the day to that point. But man, dude, you have to be able to finish these races. And I know last week it looked like his suspension failed, sent him in the wall. But if he wants to make the playoffs, which, for contracts, for sponsors, that's the big deal. You got to be the top 16 or you got to win a race, and he hasn't done either of those in terms of win a race. He was close at Auto Club, and then he was fast at Vegas and today, which, would have earned him a ton of points. I mean, he got wrecked out of Daytona while running close to the front, but that wasn't his fault. So, I mean, he needs to stop this trend, and he needs to stop it soon. Otherwise, he's going to have to win to make the playoffs. And, that's quite difficult with this new car. And then lap 304, Chase Elliott spins. I don't think he spun it on purpose this time, unlike what happened in Auto Club. But, it just shows that either his team got the setup completely wrong, or after his contact, with Blaney towards the stage 2, because he just fell off. Stage 3, Chase Elliott was nowhere. And, again, just from the 2020 champion. And then the finish, oh, God. Briscoe with Chastain. Okay, so the cup restarts. They were going 6 wide into turn 1 using that apron. Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, and Briscoe, I swear to God, were all within 15 feet of that inside pit wall when they cut the dog leg right at the beginning. And somehow, by the grace of God, Briscoe held on to it. On the lap 286 restart, the previous one, Harvick was on the outside lane and had the run, and, Briscoe just floored it in front of him, and then Harvick fell back because of the dirty air. But, hey, you got to do what you got to do to win, and, he won. So he held off. He kept in front. He never really allowed the other drivers to get side by side with him or to even his bumper on the final few laps. So, he deserved this win. Very good job. Finish was pretty good. Definitely the most average of the Cup races so far. I'd give it a 6.75. As you know, it was a standard Phoenix race. If it didn't have the championship race, I'd be all for getting rid of the spring date. It's one of those tracks that I don't think should have two races, but since it has the championship race, I think it should have a non-championship race, just so you can enjoy the track. I mean, again, at the crowd looked great. The experience is all I always hear is great at Phoenix. The on-track action, average to subpar. Anywho, standard day again. Less than 10 cautions, which is the first for the season. 6 liters, 14-liter changes, 20 cars on the lead lap. Again, mainly because of the relatively long green flag periods in Stage 3. Only 4 DNFs, LaJoy, Truex, who else had... Oh, Larson. Larson blew an engine. That's right, I didn't even mention that in this. But Larson had engine problems, and I can't even remember the 4th DNF. And so the main storyline was, the battle for the first career win. Tyler Reddick was up there. Chase Briscoe and Ross Chastain. They were the competitors. I mean, Kevin Harvick was, sure, but he wasn't taking any risks, and he didn't take any risks. That's why he finished 6th. But wow, Reddick and Chastain, if they keep up their pace, they're gonna get their first wins this year, which I like because I predicted both of those drivers to make the playoffs, as well as Chase Briscoe. I thought Briscoe was gonna win on a road course, but hey, I'll take it. And then is Stewart-Haas back after winning only 1 race last year? In 36 races, they have won 1 race in 4 races. I mean, I don't think Stewart-Haas ever left, really. I just think with the last year, they stopped developing once NASCAR kind of closed off their one loophole that they had been using in 2019 and 2020. I think Gene Haas and Tony Stewart didn't see the point in putting millions of dollars into last year's cars. And, the on-track product showed. After the first 9 races, once, teams start rolling out their second wave of equipment, Stewart-Haas just fell back. And, if Briscoe, if Almirola, who's been, top 12 in all 4 races, Kevin Harvick, who's had 2 top 10s, I mean, even Cole Custer was running in the top 20. He finished 16th. I mean, I'd say they're back. They're certainly in a better spot than JGR, and I wouldn't have said that before the beginning of the season. And then Trackhouse, their first time with both cars in the top 10. I'm impressed. Let's see what they can keep doing. And then why does Phoenix have 2 races? Like I mentioned, this track doesn't deserve it. The grandstand was sold out, which is fantastic. I love to see that. But the on-track race, it's like Pocono, but a mile instead of 2.5 miles, where, track position's king. But then even on Pocono, you got those long straights that you can, draft and make moves, and it's kind of a seesaw battle. But here, the dirty air. It's still a problem. It was less. It was, I'd probably say, more than last year. But the car, this is the weird one here. So last year, Phoenix had a 750 horsepower car, low downforce. This year is a 670 horsepower with low downforce. But the side force from last year's car made it about equivalent to this year's car. So this year, you saw drivers struggling. Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, Truex, Eric Jones, Chase Elliott, all had issues handling the car that you wouldn't have seen last year because they would have been able to recover it. This year, you saw them not recover it and spin out, which I liked. So that's why I rate this higher than last year's Phoenix's races. But it doesn't need 2 races. If they ever lose the championship, go back to 1 Phoenix. I'm sorry. Maybe NASCAR adds maybe 10,000 more seats and they sell out 50,000 instead of 40,000 or 45,000. So maybe they make it 55,000. I'm sorry. It doesn't deserve 2 dates. It can keep its fall date. I actually like Phoenix later in the year. You got to be really on point, especially when it comes to championship time to be there. Granted, the racing's not the best, but then again, throwing that curveball and at the end of the season is always a lovely thing. But anywho, moving on to the points, Joey Logano. And despite me complaining about Chase Elliott, he's actually 3rd, mainly due to his consistency. Kyle Busch, for all his complaining, is also 2nd. The top 3 drivers you would not expect to be up here, as they are none of them are in the top 4 in laps led. That is Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, Chastain, and Briscoe, who are 5th, 7th, ninth, and 14th. But that shows, their bad days, maybe 15th. Which, again, Joey Logano's making the playoffs. Look at the point gap. He's 69 points up already. He's made the playoffs. He's got to have a historically bad next 17 races? No, 22 races. He's in the playoffs. He's just not locked in yet. He'll probably get a win. But anywho, you've got 4 drivers locked in the playoffs. Your bubble's tightening up here with Bubba and Keselowski only being 4 and 6 points out of the top 16. Again, Eric Jones, dude, you don't wreck last week. You don't spin this week. You're in the top 16. Hello, what you doing there? And then Ty Dillon, props to Ty Dillon. The man, he hasn't been fast, but hasn't wrecked. He hit the wall. I'm pretty sure he hit the wall this week or last week or both weeks, but with the new car, no flat tire, got away with it. He's just been consistent. And, he gets a lot of crap because he doesn't really win. But then again, I don't think Germain Racing was that good. Sure, it had Richard Childress engines, but Germain Racing was 25th at best, in my opinion. Maybe top 20 every now and then. But anywho, you've got 4 drivers locked in the playoffs. Larson's the highest of them. Bowman still has the most amount of points. Yeah, he's the lowest in the regular season points. Just because his consistency still is not there, which you'll see in the fast car points. That's what I'm using the fast car as. It's my consistency measure to see where everyone is. And speaking of the fast car points, we go to the Xfinity fast car points. Noah Gragson has a 95-point lead. And again, this is what I miss about modern NASCAR. Sure, he's got, I think it's 60, just under 60 points in the regular season points, which is over a win. Think about that, everybody. Noah Gragson, in 4 races of a 33-race season, has already got a point lead in the regular season of more than 1 race. The most you can earn in a race in regular NASCAR points is 60 points. He has more than that. But anyway, this is fast car points, not NASCAR points. Gragson, 95 points up. Then it's pretty close for 2nd to 5th. And then 7th to 10th, 7th to 14th is pretty close. And, shout out to Trevor. Again, I'm going to talk. This is how you know when a man who's raced in 2 races, he's part-time. He's the only part-time driver with J.J. Yeley, going full-time. He's the only part-time driver that is in the top 20, and he's raced 2 races. That's crazy. If you take a look, I think it's Josh Williams, and, he's racing for B.J. McLeod, which isn't the fastest. He didn't qualify in Vegas, but he's got 150 points, and he's raced in fast car points. And that's just nuts. I'm sorry. Oh. But, again, consistency chart, Gragson, 4 top 3s. He's nearly 100 points up on A.J. Allmendinger. And for what I was ripping on Allmendinger and Kaulig, here it shows, he's still pretty consistent. He's keeping it clean. But anywho, moving on to the Cup for the final thing today. We have a tie. Yes, I repeat, we have a tie between Eric Almirola and Kyle Busch for the top. Again, consistency, the first winner. And this is the crazy thing. The first winner is in 5th, 115 points back. If you look in the normal points, Kyle or Logano and Kyle are high up. Why is that? Because they're consistent. Look at Larson. Kyle Larson's in 13th here because there's no stage points in fast car. It's all finishing position. So when Larson DNF'd at, Daytona and he DNF'd this week, it really hurts. This shows how big of an impact DNFs and Winston Cup points had on the season, which is something I think is lost. I'll do a rant on NASCAR and the playoffs at a later date. But that's not for right now. This is just the fast car points, that consistency factor. Eric Almirola, Kyle Busch tied at 655 with a 75-point lead over 3rd place. But unlike, in the Xfinity Series, all 4 winners are actually in the top 20. The reason why the Xfinity Series has that is because Cole Custer, Cup driver, not Xfinity driver, just won a race in the Xfinity Series, is I think he's 40-something in the fast car points. There's been 57 drivers that have attempted to make an Xfinity race this year. That's crazy. We're 4 races in. That's absolutely nuts. And it's going to keep growing because the Xfinity Series is wild, just like the Truck Series. I expect that list to grow too. Cup Series a bit more muted because there's, 31 full-time drivers, 32 full-time drivers out of 36 full-time cars, and then, a smattering of part-time cars. That being said, we do have a few part-time cars confirmed for upcoming races, so that'll be exciting to see. But that will be talked about when those races roll around. So that's all for Phoenix and its racing recap. But I do have an exciting announcement with this weekend. We've got 4 videos coming out previewing this weekend's action. Starting on Thursday morning with the Endurance Series video that will be covering the World Endurance Championships first round at Sebring, which is Friday. And then the 12 hours of Sebring for IMSA, which is Saturday. Absolutely stoked and pumped for that. That will be followed also on Thursday by the Atlanta weekend preview for the NASCAR Top 3 Series that have trucks and Xfinity on Saturday and then Cup on Sunday. And then on Friday morning, hopefully in between Free Practice 1 and Free Practice 2, it is the Bahrain Grand Prix race preview. F1 kicks its season off with its first race of the next generation of their cars, and I'm pumped to see that. And then that race is obviously on Sunday with qualifying Saturday morning. And then the final video, but definitely not last in my heart, and not last for the race weekend, as it is before the Cup Series on Sunday. IndyCar has their second race of the year, its first oval of the season. It's Texas, which I don't care if PJ1 makes that a 1.5 groove track. It is 20 times better than the NASCAR race at Texas. Jimmy Johnson makes his oval debut. Roman Grosjean makes his high-speed oval debut. We've got 5 rookies competing on it. 5 of the full-time rookies competing on ovals. It is Christian Lundgaard's debut, Callum Ilot's debut. Kirkwood's raced on over, so has Malukas and DeFrancisco. So we've got a ton of rookies going in that IndyCar race, and I'm absolutely pumped and thrilled for it. So that will be Friday afternoon with that race preview, weekend preview. And then, we've got the reverse of that after the weekend. We're going to have lots of racing recaps. So if you want to follow it all, listen to me break it down for you so you don't have to watch 20, 30 some hours of racing, although I would recommend that you do. Feel free to give a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave some comments on your predictions, what you're excited for, what your thought of, the next-gen car for the Cup Series, or what your thoughts on Xfinity trucks, any racing series, or any series I should check out. And if you want to hear my thoughts on previous races, check out the playlists on the channel. You've got the Wargiven Racing Podcast playlist that has every single podcast that I have done. It's also got the individual series. So if I'm talking F1, it's going to be in the F1 playlist. If I'm talking IndyCar, it's going to be there. IMSA, WEC, etc. And that's it. That's the racing recap for Phoenix this past weekend. I hope you enjoyed the race. I hope you enjoyed listening to this man ramble on about cars going in circles. Although, again, this coming weekend, I will be talking about cars that don't go in circles, and I'm excited to do so. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.